Pittsburgh Steelers. Right now, there's been a recent trade this week, Steelers, Dolphins, and this has been some pretty big news here in the NFL offseason, and we see them make a very un-Steeler-like move. Trading for Jalen Ramsey, they also get Jonnu Smith, the tight end, in a trade that involves some pick swapping, and, of course, Minkah Fitzpatrick going back to the Miami Dolphins. Let's start there because I want to talk about the Steelers offseason kind of as a whole, but this kind of sparked this discussion that we need to have about Pittsburgh, the direction they have gone here, and how differently we've seen them operate. Obviously, it starts with them going and getting Aaron Rodgers and really pushing for what feels like a team that feels like they're in contention or is acting like as if they're in contention, making these types of moves. It's been very, very un-Steeler-like. So your thoughts first on the trade.
Right. Okay. So the first thoughts on the trade is I think it's an even swap. It's really, I think myself and you, Brad, have spoken out other spaces where it feels like Miami has no direction, right? They let Javon Holland go, a guy they drafted in the second round, a guy that had proven himself that they had all the money to keep because they were getting rid of Jalen Ramsey regardless. They should have been able to keep him and build off of that, but they let him walk. So it's really more on the Dolphins side where I'm confused at with the Javon Holland and then trading back for Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think one of the things I like Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think he's more of a name and a really good player as opposed to the great player he was perhaps 2 years ago. He's a really good player that could perhaps return to greatness, but he's coming up on a contract that's going to be new. We just watched Xavier McKinney get a big deal. We watched Tua Tagovailoa get a big deal. We know that in a moment, those two safeties in Detroit, they're going to do a big deal. And I thought the Steelers made a smart decision moving on from him and then getting a guy that can still play corner right now and then move to safety a la Charles Woodson, a la Rod Woodson as well. A guy that they can move around and probably play some big nickel with right now. If the defensive coordinator can wrap his head around and obviously Mike Tomlin being a DB coach, he should be able to see that if I can see it. And being able to do some things with Slay, Porter, and Ramsey there. And as opposed to just trying to move him to safety right away. So they get some pieces there. Jonnu Smith, a stretch tight end that you can probably play a lot of 12 personnel with. We know they drafted Caleb Johnson, a guy that I had in my top 5 of running backs that's going to be back there that they should be able to do some things with it, mixing with Jalen Warren. And then you now have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback transitioning into them as a whole offseason. The Steelers look like a dysfunctional front office, not a dysfunctional team. There's a difference. They look like a dysfunctional front office where the new young GM and Omar Khan is coming in after taking over for Kevin Butler, I think his name is.
Colbert,
thank you, Kevin Colbert. And he's seeing that we have not done anything since Ben left, and we need to go in these different directions. He took a shot last year with Russ and as well as Justin Fields. He's now taking another big shot with Aaron Rodgers, but I believe that he has been pushing ownership to reset, and ownership is pushing to say we have a Super Bowl defense. We just need to fix the quarterback position, and we'll be right back. And I think what we're seeing is the GM capitulating to what the ownership wants to do, which is what most GMs have to do anyway, regardless if they feel that way or not, and saying, okay, you feel we have a team? I'm going to go get the best things that we can get. I'm going to go get DK Metcalf. I'm going to go get Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to make sure we have a running back that's old school smash mouth football Steelers style. We're also going to go ahead and make the trade and get us another DB and another tight end and give this guy as many weapons and Aaron Rodgers that is as possible to make one final push with this team, which is also the reason I think they may be stalling with a TJ Watt contract, which is even a bigger discussion.
I think the TJ Watt deal gets done sometime during training camp. I think that deal will get done. The reports that I'm seeing is that it's just a matter of kind of buttoning that deal up. I expect it to get done. Pittsburgh is pushing all the chips into the middle of the table, which, like I said a minute ago, I think is very un-Pittsburgh-like because this is a team that's always kind of played the long game. They've always been a draft and develop culture. And right now they're saying, look, we still have enough talent on this team that if we make some aggressive moves that we could make a push at this thing, whether you believe it, I believe it, whoever believes it, they clearly believe it. And I think that's what's really interesting here. I think one of the big winners in this deal is Aaron Rodgers, though, because Aaron Rodgers has a chance to maybe really try to put a exclamation point on what's already a first ballot Hall of Fame career. But I don't think anybody likes the way it ended in New York, especially Aaron Rodgers. And I think he's looking at it as like, look, can I have one last swan song, one last great playoff run in him with a franchise that's been looking to get over the hump these last couple of years. But this is the thing about these moves. Even though they're aggressive, I will say they are calculated, which still does kind of lean into what Pittsburgh has always been from the standpoint of, you talked about the Justin Fields and Russell Wilson move. Those were low risk, high reward moves. Didn't really pan out the way they wanted it to, so they were able to quickly shift. They're not really overly committed to Rodgers by any means, financially or long term. So once again, not a high risk move, but a high reward move if it pays off. And I think your point was well taken with Minkah Fitzpatrick, a very good player a couple of years ago. It looks like he's lost a step, but I think they're looking at it as like, look, we can get a guy who also has lost a step. Let's face it, Jalen Ramsey's not in his prime either, but I think Jalen Ramsey offers more versatility to be a safety and to play big nickel, because you went and got Slay. Joey Porter Jr. looks like an upcoming star at corner. So on paper, you've got your 1 and 2 corners right there. Now you've got a guy who can play in the nickel, can play some safety, and maybe be more of a long-term solution at safety. So it's a very interesting move all in all. And I think the most underrated piece of this, and you talked about it briefly, was Jonnu Smith. He's the one guy that, because he's not a quote-unquote name like a Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's not the name of a Jalen Ramsey, he kind of gets overlooked in this deal. But I think he's actually a guy they really coveted, because this is a guy who is already familiar with Arthur Smith, played with Arthur Smith in Tennessee, knows the system, is going to come in and know the playbook right away. This is a team that wants to play big smash mouth football, like you said, with Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. They want to take some of the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers. They still want to be a run-first team. They want to run 12 personnel. They want to run 13 personnel. And I think this allows them to do that, because what are defenses doing right now in the NFL? You're seeing a lot more 4-2-5. You're seeing a lot more 5 DBs on the field to combat all this 11 personnel that the rest of the league is doing. All the Sean McVays, all the Kyle Shanahan offenses that have infiltrated the league these last couple of years are so heavily with the 11 personnel that now Pittsburgh is trying to zig when everybody zags and saying, look, how do you combat that? Well, go ahead and play 5 DBs. We're going to line up in 13 personnel and smash mouth football and run the ball, set up play action, get DK Metcalf one-on-one on the outside, get some of these tight ends in some play action passing situations off the running game. It's a fascinating move by the Pittsburgh Steelers here. A lot of people are thinking, okay, well, why'd you get rid of George Pickens? Just pick up a Rice. George Pickens was a locker room problem.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reports that have said, look, this guy was a major issue. He was showing up to practice late, not giving effort. How many times have we seen these videos emerge where he is completely unengaged?
Yeah.
When it comes to blocking on run plays, not running hard on his routes. Like, there's a lot of reasons, I think, where he had become a headache for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they said, look, we're moving on. We're going to get a veteran guy who we think can be a difference maker, even if we got to pay him, which once again goes back to my original statement. This is just all very un-Pittsburgh-like.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it seems very calculated.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, George Pickens and DK Metcalf 1,000% would have been the most penalized team in the wide receivers in the NFL, just given, their resume. And also, Pittsburgh was not going to pay George Pickens, as he was a second-round pick, so he was coming up on a new deal. So it's now Dallas's issue to deal or not to deal with, depending on how they see with it. And I also wanted to make a point of reference of Beanie Bishop, another guy in that secondary that should be mentioned, because he did emerge as a rookie last year in that slot where I believe they're going to slide Jalen Ramsey in. He's going to play, I don't want to call it big nickel. I am calling it big nickel, but more of that rover type of player where it's a read and react that says, listen, you know enough about this league. You know enough about these quarterbacks, what to read and react to. But as far as the overall Pittsburgh Steelers offseason, they look disconnected. Only talking about the front office, I feel like the GM is capitulating to what the ownership wants and what they believe versus what the GM's actual outlook on the team is. Because if we took I'd like to say the Sean McVay approach to this, Sean McVay and Les Snead are trading TJ Watt just based upon how they acted with the Rams organization when they felt like, you know what? This isn't going to work. This is not about TJ Watt as a player. This is just about where you see the team in the next, not even the next 5 years, in the next 2 years. Trade TJ Watt. Move on from TJ Watt. Ride out the season with Mason Rudolph. Perhaps you get a top 10 pick. You have this opportunity to go and perhaps find your quarterback. You draft well. That's one thing two things we know about Pittsburgh Steelers. They're gonna get you a wide receiver, regardless of what we feel about George Pickens. He is a guy. When he's focused, that is a guy. And they will always get you an outside rusher. Those are two things we know from the Pittsburgh Steelers, that they're gonna get those two things, and they're always gonna find not necessarily the Cam Hayward, but they drafted Derek Harmon, Keontae Benton. So they know what they're doing at these specific positions. They've just been having an issue at quarterback more than anything. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, Brad, as we go through this offseason, are going to be a very interesting team from a couple of different angles. One, from a Vegas angle, because regardless of what Vegas is saying right now, today, regardless of what they say, Mike Thomas still does not have a losing season. You have to take that in consideration. And then there is an unknown factor in Aaron Rodgers, because listen, and he's 1,000% a first ballot Hall of Famer. However, his quarterback obituary is going to read all of these MVPs, all of these QBRs and touchdown to interception ratio. But there is always going to be a big but in his obituary. It's going to say he didn't get enough to enough Super Bowls. I'm sorry, it's not about even if he won them. He didn't get to enough. He was with a team in Green Bay that he was in position several times over to make it to a Super Bowl. And because of his stubbornness, because of some of the play calling, because of his arrogance, they didn't make it enough. If Jim Irsay, God rest the dead, was able to say that about Peyton Manning, and I could agree with him, I have to keep the same energy for Aaron Rodgers, who had a team that was in position. Do we all forget what he did against Tampa Bay in the Tom Brady game? Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions, turnovers on his side of the field, and they could not convert. If that was Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, we'd be killing them. We have to keep the same energy for Aaron Rodgers in his career.
I think that's why both of these teams needed each other. The Steelers needed Aaron Rodgers as much as Aaron Rodgers needed Pittsburgh, because I think you look at Pittsburgh and you have, once again, a first ballot Hall of Fame coach, but a guy who hasn't had a ton of success in the playoffs in several years, and things have gotten stagnant. They've been good, not great. And so they're looking around, to your point, saying, okay, well, we can't get over the hump because of our quarterback issue, going all the way back to an aging Ben, and then continuing in with all these, let's face it, backup level quarterbacks that they've had these last several years. Yes, they rolled the dice with Pickett. That didn't work out. But regardless, they've been trying to fix this quarterback problem and haven't been able to. And so it goes back to this whole original topic here with Pittsburgh of, look, we got to push a different button here, because what we've been doing isn't working. It's just getting us to the same result of just being a good, not great football team. And I don't know if it's going to work. I mean, that's what makes this whole thing fascinating. I don't know if it's going to work, but I do applaud the Steelers for at least saying, look, we have to change course. We've got to do something different here, because we can't just be happy with looking at the future and building draft capital and developing guys, which they do a great job of all those things. But all that's done for them is allow them to be good, not great. And it's allowed them to stay right in that 20 to 24th overall pick, where they can't get one of these top quarterbacks.
They're in that weird sweet spot. It's weird.
Yeah, where they're always in contention for the playoffs, but they're not good. Once they get to the playoffs, they're not good enough to look at the teams they've been losing to. They lose to Josh Allen, they lose to Patrick Mahomes. They get to the playoffs, they run into a Lamar Jackson, somebody with a high level quarterback, and they get bounced. And I don't know if Aaron Rodgers gets them over the hump. I have no idea what to expect with all of this, but I think I do applaud them for the move and the aggressive nature of saying, look, let's give this thing a run. And if it doesn't work, they're not overly committed, and they can quickly pivot. And so kind of going back to your point about TJ Watt, I think it makes sense to what you're saying is like some teams would just look at this and be like, look, let's just rebuild. But they're looking at it as like, look, we're committed to this season to try to make it work. The last thing you want to do is move off of your most important defensive player. So I get it from that standpoint. And Pittsburgh is a team, let's face it, their culture is defense, and their defense has been good. They've been so good, they've actually managed to have a winning record all these years with mediocre quarterback play. So there is something to be said about that. Maybe this team can make some noise. It's hard to think that they can. There's a lot of question marks here with this team. Maybe the most fascinating team in the NFL this season, quite honestly. This is just crazy to see this team operate in this way with a win now mentality. But if it doesn't work, you can also hit the reset button.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, I don't necessarily hate it because, look, if there's a good quarterback class coming up, maybe you go back and you try it again. Maybe you get aggressive. Maybe you do something, once again, un-Steeler-like. You package some picks and some players and you go get one of these top quarterback prospects. I have no idea. But what a fascinating team going into this fall, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. What are we at? I think the last I looked at, I think we might have been at 79 days in terms of the NFL, so we're going to have a lot of fun as we get down the stretch. I will say, if you haven't been tuning in, we've been having some great guests, and I will preview this. Our next guest is going to be someone you want to tune in for. So make sure you pay attention to the next drop after this one.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. For sure, guys. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following on Twitter. Make sure you're checking out pintglassfootball.com. Make sure you're checking out the newsletter, all the stuff, guys, because it's more than just these episodes here on YouTube. We're putting out a ton of content for you guys, like always. Tons of great guests, previewing all kinds of big college football programs, talking NFL, of course, and lots of good stuff to come. So, guys, make sure you're tuned in to PGF because, like Alex said, there's going to be a lot more coming soon.